Welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. And this week, could have sworn we talked about this before, did we? Who cares? We're talking about candles! Cue the music! Hello there, Capers, and as I said, welcome to Podcapers, the official podcast of a place to hang your cape. My name's Scott James Merridew, and this is the show where we talk about various geek and nerd-related topics, and I'm joined each week by a very special different guest. He's been on the show before, you know him, you love him. It's Lyndon White, everybody! How you doing?
Wow, that was an intro. I'm good. That was, I'm appreciating the hype levels.
I mean, this is what we do in the show. We hype! We stand the hype! We ride the hype train to the gates of oblivion! To Valhalla! I'm sorry, I've been playing, going back into my PS3 and playing Brutal Legend, so now I'm in a bit of a Jack Black mindset.
I love it. I'm here for it.
Do you remember that game, Brutal Legend? I think I'm the only one that remembers it outside of myself, Jack Black, and Tim Schafer.
I remember it, but I never played it. I've got a bit of a love-hate relationship with Jack Black. I know. Sorry,
I get it. He's not everyone's cup of tea. I would worship the man myself, but that's just me. It's been well documented how crazy I am.
Yeah, I actually like him in some stuff, but I feel when he's doing Jack Black for the sake of Jack Black, that's when it's like I'm not there for it. But I actually really like him in The Holiday.
No, I completely understand. No, because he's playing against type. He was cast against type.
Yeah.
Jack Black has the down-to-earth romantic love interest, but here's the thing. He's a charming dude. He can play that very well.
Yeah, he does have chops. He has chops more than his Jack Black chops. But yeah, I think I just missed the Jack Black train, and then I only ever saw him in those like little things. I'm just like Gulliver's Travels. Do we really need?
No.
No, exactly, yeah.
I mean, no one came out of that looking good. Okay, so it's the classic, Lemuel Gulliver, a Jonathan Swift novel, but let's get Jack Black in it and just focus on the tiny people. Like, it was a big story. He went to different places. It was Gulliver's Travels, not Gulliver's Travel. That's all I'm saying. Now, we are going to get into lots of stuff regarding you, Lyndon, and candles, but before we do that, we've got to do the news! Bunch of news I want to get through with you today, Lyndon. First of all, I've been somewhat sporadically covering what I can only assume to be the dumpster fire that is the latest Indiana Jones movie. They started shooting over here in the UK, and it's just been announced, at least at time of recording, it's just been announced, that Harrison Ford suffered an on-set injury. Maybe getting a guy as old as Harrison Ford to do Indiana Jones stunts is a bad idea.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of want him to still do it instead of CGI, but there's no good way to do it.
No, I mean, eventually we're just going to have poor Harrison in a walker, just in a Zimmer frame, just desperately, I'm going to get you, you darn Nazis, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Solid.
know it probably won't be. That's how Harrison Ford speaks.
Yeah. I mean, if we can get him to just like grab a hat under a falling door, and if we can get him driving a car and maybe shooting someone, I'll be happy. Like, we don't need to, we want him to come out at the other end of this film.
I mean, as you say, I'm glad they're not doing CGI. I'm glad they haven't recast it, but I'd just rather not have an Indiana Jones movie because we don't need another Indiana Jones movie. But Lucasfilm are desperate to throw as many darts on the dartboard as possible and hope that some of them stick, which has worked very well for them in the past and not. So I hope he gets a speedy recovery. Someone getting injured is no laughing matter, but I mean, he's had suffered that before on Star Wars, and I want him to be safe. He can only survive so many plane crashes.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that particularly this one, they're really trying to do a redemption of it after number 4, or is it just sell this? Milk this cow until it's dry.
We don't need a redemption because we can just go back to the original films and enjoy those. There is no need for redemption when you have 2 solid films and Temple of Doom, and
we don't talk about number 4.
We don't talk about number 4. You know, at least I could tell with number 4 they were trying. It did not work, but they were trying. This, I mean, I'm sure they will try on this, but you know, can't help but feel they're going through the motions. Steven Spielberg doesn't even want to come back to it, and frankly, I don't blame him.
Oof.
He's got a fucking West Side Story remake to direct. We really needed that, I guess. Ugh. God. Anyway, so that's one bit of news. Next bit of news, some casting news. Ron Perlman has been announced as being cast as Optimus Primal in the upcoming new Transformers movie, Transformers Beast Wars, whatever it's called. Like, do you have a dog in the Transformers fight?
No, I'm really not. I mean, it's a Michael Bay film. Well, the Michael Bay films, it's like just throw explosions at the screen. Like, just not my bag. I mean, I loved the Beast Wars cartoon. Like, I loved Transformers cartoon as a kid, but every time I just kind of like gloss my eyes over at them at this point. I heard Bumblebee was all right. I heard
Bumblebee was fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Bumblebee, except for the ending. I don't want to spoil it for you, but I have an issue with the ending, and I'm just gonna gloss over that. But, you know, it would be cool to see Ron Perlman in something, because I like Ron Perlman. Elijah Wood has also been cast in the upcoming Toxic Avenger reboot. I guess a lot of Toxic Avenger fans, although this feels very on brand for Elijah Wood, in fairness.
Yeah, you're hitting these news stories, and I'm like, oh no, I'm really not up to date with this. I've like been in my little artist hole and didn't even know they were doing another Transformers film, and now Toxic. Yeah, no idea. My bad.
I mean, it's gone pretty much under the radar. I only just heard about it, in fairness. It'd be interesting to see a return of the old schlocky Toxic Avenger thing, but that was very much quintessential, you know, like 80s action B-movie stuff. Like, how can you recreate that? I don't know. I'm sure it'll be just as good as the Highlander reboot, which still hasn't cast a fucking Scotsman as the fucking... I've already talked about this. I'm not going to go over it again. On some, there seems to be a lot of 80s stuff going on in this new segment, because we just got a new He-Man Revelation trailer expanding upon the story of part 1, because it's going to be divided into parts, of Kevin Smith's continuation. It's not a reboot, it's a continuation of the classic 80s cartoon, with none of the same style as the 80s, though, so I don't know how that's going to work out. Apparently it's going to tie up a bunch of plot threads that were left unfulfilled from the original cartoon, which I never watched, so I don't know.
Oh, I had all the toys for this. I can't remember any of the story, apart from he shouts he has a power and there's people with swords and weird characters. I think from what I've read...
Next time, He-Man! Next time, you muscle-brown moron! Is this what my life has come to? I'm like a massive wizard with a skull for the face, and I just can't take over one castle. It's right there, and I can't do anything about it. I'm useless. I mean, look at who I have for sidekicks. Evil Lynn. That's just like a Midwestern suburban house mom's name with evil in front of it. And who are you? Beastmaster? Beastmaster? Are you a master beast? No, you're just a beast. We're not even the masters of the universe. We're like the masters of evil or something. They're the masters of the universe, despite the fact they don't go anywhere outside of this planet. God,
it's like Battle World.
Yeah, sure.
It's essentially Battle World. I mean, when Kevin Smith announced he was doing this, I read a thing that he said that to him, it's not reboot, it's continuation, but it's a continuation of anyone who loved the show and the story. It's like what it is in your head. It's not the version they're doing exact recreation. It's more like
it's
you
not,
as a kid. Yeah. As a kid, you thought this was like the best thing in the world. And he's taking that like spark that people had in their head, and that's what they're doing. Because I don't think they could just continue it at this point. They have to update it, and the animation looks great. Like, I mean, anyone who watches this is here for like the over-the-top action and swords and fights, and they
made Orko look cool. Fucking Orko! How do they do that?
I think they're going to try and make it really grown up. I've slightly spoiled territory. I think someone's going to get axed off in the first chunk to really give it some stakes.
The trailer seems to indicate that perhaps a side character, what's her name, Teela? The red-haired one. I don't know. I don't know the names. I know He-Man, I know Beastmaster, Evelyn, Skeletor, King Randor, and Let me put it this way: I know more She-Ra characters than I know He-Man because did you ever watch the She-Ra reboot? And that was a reboot.
I think I caught 1 or 2 episodes of it, and it was really cool. Like, it wasn't particularly for me. I didn't finish it, but I thought, I'm glad this exists. This looks really cool. But I was never a She-Ra person growing up. Yeah, they look like the animation and like the actual growth of the characters look really good.
Yeah, I'm hoping that that show rubbed off of this one. I don't think we're going to get a crossover because obviously that takes place in a different continuity, and this was a different style. I can only assume that She-Ra already exists in He-Man Revelation, so maybe we'll still see She-Ra, just not in the version from the DreamWorks show. But that's one trailer news. Last bit of news, another bit of trailer news actually, and I was unaware that this was going on. Are you by any chance a fan of the Wheel of Time novels?
No. I'm not doing very... This is like 4 for 4 now at this point.
I'm not trying to lower your nerd cred or anything, I swear. But I mean, the Wheel of Time was a huge fantasy novel series by this author, Robert Jordan, comprising like a huge cosmology and mythology in this great fantasy world called the Wheel of Time series. And they've announced they're going to do a TV series of it with Amazon Prime. Rosamund Pike has been cast as one of the main characters. And they've released a bunch of tiny little trailers for it, including a title treatment trailer, which is them basically just showing off like the intro a little bit, like the graphics of it, I guess, which is fine. They're clearly trying to ride the hype train. As for the books, I've only read the first one. I have got the second one, but I haven't gotten around to reading it. Because right now I'm in the middle of rereading Jess Smith's classic graphic novel Bone, as well as starting Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series Final Empire, first book.
Very nice.
And the first book, it's good. It's very good at setting up this world, but you're stuck with this one character for a lot of the time. And at first he seems fine as a character that goes. Then you switch perspectives to another character and you realize, oh, this character is way better. And it sort of makes the main character look kind of shit in comparison. He just seems kind of dull and bland. And well, maybe I think even that's a kind of a disservice. He's just not as interesting as other characters. I don't know if that changes as the series goes on. I will give it a chance. But I'd be interested to see what they do with a TV show. I think
it could be quite malleable based on that character then? Like, if that character's a bit, the person that people meant to latch onto as the new...
I kind of wonder if that was the intention, yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't really like. I like characters with defined personalities, likes and dislikes, and just more of a concrete motivation. And again, it wasn't bad until I switched perspectives, because then it was like just the sheer comparison. And that would be fine if I switched another character and they weren't as good, because it's like, okay, but they're a side character, they're a minor character. This is the main character we're talking about. So, but I still recommend it because it is very well written and it does draw you into the world, and you can clearly see the influences the author had. So, in fact, Brandon Sanderson took over writing the novels after Robert Jordan passed away. He did like 3 of the books in the series. Oh, right. So, it's a series that has much love, and I'll be interested to see where the TV show goes. But before we can get into all of that, we've got to talk about candles. But before we can do that even, we've got some ads! Check them out!
And now we're pleased to bring you our feature presentation.
Now, as the more loyal listeners of UKpers will know, we once talked about candles way back in episode 87 in 2018. And I believe then you said candles would be out in a year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In 2018.
So...
You really think someone would do that? Just go on the internet and tell lies?
How dare you, Scott? How'd you do me dirty like that? So, if you want to get, I'm guessing we'll get into a little bit of a nitty gritty. So, when I went on Unbound with Candles, the intention was get it funded in about a year and a half while I work on it. And the idea is you crowdfund it while you, the idea of Unbound is you crowdfund it while you're drawing the book. So when I last spoke to you, I think I was doing the line work. So I literally spent 6 months full time just getting a solid version of the pencils done, so I could see the whole book. Unbound was quite a slow crowdfunding platform, and in one way or another, it just didn't particularly work. So, while this was going on, I also got the option to do Reanimator, another graphic novel with Andy Perry, and I was sat there thinking I can get Candles to crowdfund and see how it ticks along. But I've also got this big paid project sat there, and if this crowdfunding platform,
You had rent to pay, you got stuff to do.
Yeah, exactly. Especially after spending 6 months like not taking on any work, I was like, well, if this crowdfunding platform it's not going to be done in this chunk of time, which we hoped it would. So we'll let it tick along and push it while I quietly work away on this other book and see how it pans out. And while all this was going on, I don't want to get too much into nitty gritty because there's still creators on there and there's still things going to happen. But Unbound have shown a slight lack of support for graphic novels, which was originally promised that isn't there. So I've managed to get out of my deal with Unbound, and I went away, finished Candles off my own back. So I've just spent the last 8 months just finishing it and getting to the state it was in.
And you're now working with Cast Iron Books now.
Yeah, so Cast Iron Books is set up by Lizzie Kay, who was my editor at Unbound. So we're kind of everything that I originally wanted to do and who I originally pitched Candles to at Unbound was Lizzie. That's who all my correspondence was until she left. So I've kind of, where was I at? Let me just get the timeline right. Candles was crowdfunding. Finished Reanimator. We did Reanimator. Was about to spend 8 months on Candles to get it finished, and then the pandemic hit. So instead of jumping straight into Candles, I spent 6 months building a nest egg. And because when lockdown 1 happened, I was still getting lots of freelance work in. So I spent 6 months just taking every bit of work on possible because you just didn't know how it was going to pan out. Literally no one knew like if work was going to stop. People lost books, I lost projects, everyone did.
We were all in the wilderness. No one knew.
Yeah.
People still don't know what the fuck's going on in this country. But...
Oh, yeah. I mean, you can throw Brexit into the equation, and it's a whole even like it can do a whole thing. So yeah.
Tonight at 11.
Doom!
Very appropriate. So anyway, finished Reanimator. About to work in Candles, pandemic hits, freelance for 6 months, build up a nest egg. I then, when that 6 months is up, then finish a book, signed a new book deal with Cast Iron Books, and now I'm on Kickstarter with Candles, finished, ready. Thank you. And I think you saw the original samples, I think. If you look at the new version, all the artwork's been redone because I've actually got better over. Believe it or not, artists do get better over the past couple of...
Surely not!
Yeah, I know. Shock. Horror.
What heights can this man reach?
So, I mean, it's been at times a little frustrating and a lot of uncertainty of what's going to happen with it. But Candles is now in a place where it's the book that I wanted it to be, because I've just, instead of trying to crowdfund it all the time constantly while it wasn't finished, which is what you have to do in Unbound, I've just kind of gone, let's put a halt to it, let's just work on it, let's get it to a finished state and then crowdfund it, which is what I prefer to do anyway. It's what I've done with all my other past Kickstarters. So it's just, overall it's been about learning experience of when something isn't working, put a stop, pause it, and then find out your next course of action kind of thing. That makes sense.
Good to course correct. It's always good rather than going in a direction that you're not happy with, you're not satisfied with, figure out what is you actually want to do, create that in your mind, and then forge a new path. I think that's good. I mean, honestly, I'm of a mindset that it's always good to wait for something good rather than getting something okay in the moment. And judging by the Kickstarter and the new artwork, it will be worth the wait.
Yeah, I mean, I'd still put my hand up and say if Unbound panned out, Candles would have been out already and would have been finished. but I just had to, pandemic, reanimator, pay. You just have to
Life
switch
gets
gears.
in the way. It happens. And no one's blaming you for it. I'm not an entitled, give me my thing that I want now kind of guy. I mean, okay, I am, but only if you severely test my patience. It's only been 3 years.
Yeah, only 3 years. I mean, 3 years is about the time a graphic novel takes to make on average. Believe it or not, people are working on these things way before they get announced. But I'm happy that it's panned out like this. I'm glad the book had longer time to cook because I hit a point. It was last year, maybe a little bit more. I kind of unlocked that next step with my artwork, like level up moment, and you don't get those very often. Woohoo! You never know when those are coming about, and it just so happened I was working on something completely different to everything involved, and that key kind of turned. I'm like, this is the next step I can take, which is then I've applied to all of Candles. So yeah, the book is better because of all this. But yeah, I mean, Kickstarter's doing well.
Oh, fuck yeah. I mean, how long has it been up at time of recording?
Time of recording, a little under 2 weeks. So about a week.
2 weeks. And you're, 85% funded?
Yeah, 85. We've got 2 weeks to go. It's been incredibly supportive. And, we're in that middle bit where Kickstarters tend to slow down, but it's ticking over nicely every day. And people have been great. I know a lot of people have been sat waiting on this one.
You don't make promises your ass can't cash,
Yeah.
Because you put your work center stage up front. This is what I'm doing. This is what I've done so far. This is what you'll get. And everyone has a very clear understanding of what they'll get if they support you. And that's always great because you see a lot of Kickstarters where people with the best of intentions, in fairness, don't necessarily put their best foot forward or, have great ideas and designs that they just can't really follow through on. Or at least we don't know if they can follow through on. Just looking right now, my God, man, this looks, oh my God, the artwork. So I've talked about this artist before. He's probably one of my favorite artists right now. I don't know if you know him. It's Croatian artist. No, it's not. It's not you.
Oh, I was trying to pander to you then. You shouldn't have. Carry on.
You remind me of this different artist who's way better. No, it's this Croatian artist called, and I'm going to get this name wrong. I mentioned him before. Stefan Sedgic. He worked on Rat Queens.
I'm going to have a quick look. Stefan?
Okay, so STJEPANSEJIC.
I'm glad you spelled that. Okay, yeah, I know.
Sorry, I'm getting it totally wrong, but he's worked on Rat Queens and a bunch of other stuff like Witchblade, which I'm not a really big fan of, but I do like his artwork. And the thing I noticed between you and him is your use of color, the sort of atmospheric thing that sort of lights up a whole panel with. Because I mean, it's called Candles. Your use of light in this whole thing, my God, you set the sky on fire. The woods are full of fireflies. It's beautiful.
Thank you. I've really, like I said, I went away and finished this how I wanted to finish it. That's very much I've done. And it's been the case of, there's been a number of times when I'm like, oh, is that good enough? And I'm like, maybe I should do better. And then I'm 2 seconds later, I'm like, oh, fuck it. I'll just do it. It doesn't matter. I'll just do it. I care about it now.
Stick to your guns.
Yeah. And you've seen the preview, I'm guessing. Have you seen the preview, the first chunk? Or not? Or
I haven't seen the preview of this brand new chunk. No, I saw it way back.
Okay, well,
I'm just going off of the Kickstarter, and I mean, it helps that I've got that baseline knowledge already, because I'm familiar with the plot. I remember talking about it bits. But if I ask you questions that I asked you 3 years ago, that's not my fault. Okay, I'm only human. I can barely remember what I had for breakfast. You're lucky you stayed in my mindscape this long.
We're in a time loop. Don't worry about it. Fine.
Oh, God, please don't say that. No, I can't go back to 2018 knowing what's going to come. Oh, Jesus. I'm going to enjoy 2 years. Oh, God, no.
You'll be prepping with all the toilet roll, getting all that stocked up.
Y'all laughed at me. Y'all laughed at me. I am the prophet. God. I mean, what I mean, because, you're a fantasy nerd as much as I am, even though you don't know Wheel of Time. Won't hold that against you.
I know.
And So you have some very clear influences, including Studio Ghibli.
Hmm.
Or Ghibli. I can never remember. I can never fucking remember.
I call it. I think I changed by the months. I feel like someone said something official and no one's listened to them, so it's just whatever you're feeling.
Whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, the work, it stands for itself, and the name does not matter. I've dipped my toe into the Ghibli films. I'm not as invested in them as other things. I've seen a lot of films by people who have left Ghibli. There was that film, what was it called?
Mary and the Witch's Flower, I think
That's
it is.
I really like that film. And I saw the trailer for this new Ghibli film, not directed by Miyazaki himself, but I think it's his son.
The 3G one, the not
3D
3G,
one,
the
yeah.
3D
So
one.
what's your take on them doing 3D? What do you think about that?
Personally, I'm not a fan. I mean, I need to be that guy to actually watch it before I give like a proper take.
Yeah.
But to me, like
Never stop me.
yeah, Ghibli's like king of 2D. I mean, they have mixed bits of 3D in the backgrounds of things like for certain shots over the years. Like there's some tiny things that you don't even necessarily notice. I think the Wind Rises uses a tiny bit of it in places.
I'm sure Howl's Moving Castle must have done it at some point.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it's that, you know, I'm someone who loves the merging of traditional and digital. So as long as you get that balance, I think it's fine. But my heart hurts a little bit thinking about it. I'm gonna have to watch it and try and keep an open mind about it, because these films are some of my favorite films. Like I think Howl's Moving Castle, Princess Mononoke, Spirited Away, Grave of Fireflies, those are my top tier.
Oh, it's a fun animated film between a brother and a sister. Let's watch that. Oh no!
I know I love Grave of Fireflies. It breaks my heart every time I watch it. I know it's coming. I'll still bawl my eyes out.
Because the movie gives you that emotional attachment. A bad movie couldn't do that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think everyone like sees that one as one of the best ones, but it's not the most rewatchable.
No.
It's definitely not got that, it's on, I'll watch it for a little bit in the afternoon kind of feel.
And let's follow it up with some Watership Down. God.
Just rip my heart out every day with one of these films, you know.
Bright eyes. No. And the thing, I view Watership Down also as a fantasy movie because it has this magical mythos to it, which actually freaked me out probably more than the actual, rabbit murder in the main movie when I watched it when I was a kid. And so let's talk about that. So what's some of your big fantasy influences, at least at the moment? Because I know you play Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, I'm actually playing D&D later today.
Me too.
One shot.
I haven't played... my group, I am in a D&D group hosted by the editor of Podcapers, the wonderful Alex Mirabal. She's the DM, and we're playing Curse of Strahd right now. And because of people's schedules and stuff, people moving house, we haven't been able to play in a month.
Oh, that's hard.
I'm getting the shakes.
Yeah, I want to pick up that book, and I think that's one I want to DM. Because I'm, into Gothic and vampires and all that kind of stuff. I want to do that.
Why would the guy who did like a Frankenstein book and a Rihanna book like Gothic creepy stuff? It boggles the mind.
I know. It's so weird how these things pan out. But yeah, I love D&D. I'm a big Dark Souls fan. Love Dark Souls.
Of
course I am. I actually played the board game before I played the games.
There's a board game?
Yeah.
Okay, roll the dice, move 2 spaces. You have died. Go back to the beginning.
Okay. Everything you feel about the games is in the board game in terms like the risk and reward and the highs and the lows, and like when it's Dark Souls captures that feeling of pushing it just that little bit more even though you think you might die, and the reward for it is just I love it. You don't always win, but it's good fun.
Don't always win. More like you always lose, except for maybe like one thing. I think I heard one reviewer described it as bashing your head through a brick wall just to get to the other side and loving it for it.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I've gone all in on this.
It's an abusive relationship at this point.
I've gone all in on it with my friend, and like I've got the expansions and stuff. And the idea is that you push to do a mini boss, and then you push even further to do the main boss, and you have the checkpoint midway. But I once did it where we had all the extra expansions, so we had mimics and invasions and stuff. And I think me and my friend, I don't think we made it to the mini boss because my mate just every time we opened a chest, a mimic popped out and just ate him, and it just.
This is the worst birthday ever.
Yeah, it got to a stage where we were just like, we've got no health, we've got no items. The next room is the boss. We're gonna die, but let's just do it. It'll be fine. It's
One
good
last
fun.
blaze of glory.
Yeah, exactly.
Evil beware. We have waffles.
Ooh. I'm loving these sound effects, by the way. Like,
I've got 1,000,000 of them.
nice. Yeah. What else? I mean, I love the Lord of the Rings films. I've read the Fellowship.
There's a TV series coming for that.
Yep.
Because Warner Brothers are desperate to get their cash cow back.
I mean, Lord of the Rings is a reason to print money. It'll sell no matter what.
Christopher Tolkien just off in the corner fuming and sulking.
Yeah.
I can't say I don't blame him, frankly. I mean, I love the movies. They are very good movies, but I understand why he's not a big fan.
Yeah. I think I love them for what they are. It annoys me sometimes they are just a bit of a sausage fest. But I feel like fantasy.
But then when they try and bring female characters in, they don't really know how to do it because look at The Hobbit. Just
yeah.
Give her something to do besides having a three-way between Poldark and Will Turner.
I mean, God, it's one of those things. Like, I wish in another universe would have got a different version of those films that wasn't a trilogy, but they just at this point,
maybe two films tops.
Yeah, I can pick things out of each one that I like. I wouldn't. They're nowhere near as good as the original trilogy, but I think me and Ellie watched them. I think it was last year. We did all of Lord of the Rings and thought, we're gonna do The Hobbit. We're too far in now. And you know what? We enjoyed them. Like, we're not as good, but we enjoyed them. I mean, I think the problem is you've got
because the people making them love them. You know, Peter Jackson loves them. That's why. I mean, it's funny because Elijah Wood's got I think it was his 21st birthday on the set of the Lord, or was it 19th? His birthday on the set of Lord of the Rings, and he's got his 30th birthday on the set of The Hobbit, and so it's got the most parallel. And of course, they got Ian Holm back. I think he was going through Parkinson's. At the time, and he was not well. They had to have his wife there with him to help him, but they said, "Look, we want to get you back. We want to do sure that you're in a way that you're okay with, that you're fine with, and you can enjoy." And they did that, and it was hard for them, but they managed to get through it, and it was a really nice moment between Peter Jackson, Elijah Wood, and Ian Holm, and so it was great that they got him back for that before his tragic passing. So, and you can tell from the movie that there are moments where it's like, oh, they really enjoyed making this. That doesn't make it good or enjoyable, but it's better that they did that than something cynical and cold and a cash grab, you know?
Yeah. I feel like there's an element of, we did it once, maybe we can do it again. And unfortunately, they just didn't have the material and everything to back it up. And there was a bit of, there is magic in that. There is literal magic in that first trilogy. It is classic, and it will always stay a classic trilogy. And people will go from, I love Return of the King because it's got the big set piece at the end, and then everyone then says, but the Fellowship is so pure, and there's, and then Helm's Deep in the second one.
No, please, Mr. Gandalf, don't turn me into anything unnatural.
I don't know what comic, but I'm gonna put my Helm's Deep moment in something, and I'm gonna have pain. It's gonna pay me to draw it, but it's gonna be there. I don't know.
I have plot armor so I can jump into a crowd of orcs.
Yeah, yeah. And then we're gonna have some horses ride down the hill with light shining behind them, and they'll kill all the baddies, and it'll be wonderful.
Did you ever watch the animated movies of Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, my dad had it taped and watched. I had no idea what was going on half the time because I had no context for half of this stuff because it's quite.
I mean, that's a Ralph Bakshi movie in a nutshell. You'd have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, and then it just stops.
Yeah.
Was it the plan was to do more, but we ran out of budget, or it just got axed?
The plan was to do split into two parts. Ralph Bakshi wanted to make it very clear at the end of the first part that this would still just be part one. They wanted to have that on the title and want to make it very clear to the audience that this is, half of the movie and you're going to get the other half later. The studio, which he famously clashed with on almost all of his projects, basically said, no, we're not going to do that. And audiences were pissed and confused. And that's why in more recent releases, they include different narrations saying, thus ends the first part of The War of the Ring or something.
Okay.
And it did end up getting picked back up by a completely different studio, Rankin Bass. The people who did like the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer special. So, well, I mean, they also did The Last Unicorn, in fairness, which is another great film. So, yeah, it's very odd and didn't have the same sort of style or tone, and it was very different in many different ways. Did you watch that one as well?
I didn't even know that existed. I thought it was just like, it just never panned out. I didn't realize they actually got to finish it in some fashion.
No, they finished that movie. They recorded it Return of the King, and it features a song of the orcs singing "Where There's a Whip, whoosh, there's a way, whoosh, where there's a whip, there's a way. We don't want to go to war today." It's like a full, like the orcs have a fucking synchronized choir going on. It's just like, oh my god, they're gonna a cappella us to death.
Is it like one step away from glitter and jazz hands kind of thing, and a flick kick?
Basically, one ring to rule them all. I don't know.
Cha cha cha.
It's very bizarre, and you got to respect though the first animated movie because it included so many different art styles as well, including rotoscoping, which I know a lot of 80s movies were doing at the time. A lot of 80s animated films, like what was it called, Fire and Ice? Was that what it was called? I can't remember.
Not sure about one. My nerd cred is just going down and down and down. Like it's going to be like
these
bottom
are
of a graph
obscure
after this.
references.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the Fire and Ice is like an 80s fantasy action movie. It's sort of in the vein of like a fantasy. You ever seen the movie Heavy Metal?
Nope. There we go. Down we go
Jesus.
again.
I will send you a list. I mean,
Please
Heavy
do.
Metal is much better. Fire and Ice isn't that great, but it's like there's these classic like Conan the Barbarian artworks by this actor Franz Fowler, I can't remember his name, and where it's like all big muscle bound oiled men coupled with big women with huge tracts of land, and it's like those artworks, but it's a movie. And it's got a lot of road scoping stuff, much like the Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings movie. Oh god, I could go on about that movie. I don't want to. Did you? I'm sorry to keep on doing this to you. I'm sure you have. Did you actually watch the Rankin Bass movie, The Last Unicorn, when you were a kid?
Yeah, very long time ago.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it probably after college. Like I haven't seen it in a long time.
It's worth going back
was
to.
Was it really? Didn't it used to be really hard to get hold of?
I don't know. I think it's because it wasn't marketed very well. I mean, anything released at that time that wasn't Disney was not marketed very well.
Mm-hmm.
It had a great cast. It had Christopher Lee and Jeff Bridges and Alan Arkin for some reason. I don't know. Mia Farrow was the unicorn. Bizarre. Angela Lansbury actually was also in it, though. She was Mommy Fortuna, like the crazy witch lady.
Mm-hmm.
And but it was sort of marketed as like, oh, it's a fun classic, My Little Pony kids movie, when it's anything but. It's based on a brilliant novel by was it Peter Beagle or William Beagle? I can't ever remember his name. Who actually did the screenplay for it as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of the reason why it's so good.
Did it have similar problems to like the Black Cauldron? Black Cauldron is really, I love that film, but it was incredibly dark, and whenever we tried to market it, they just had people complaining, or it didn't fit in with everything else being done at the time.
Black Cauldron, I think, is an entirely different cauldron of fish, if you will, because I think, unlike Last Unicorn, that had a more troubled production.
Okay.
Last Unicorn was dealing with, budget issues. They didn't have as good animation as other things, although I still think animation is great. And you can tell because all of the backgrounds, or like all of the artwork and stuff, nothing is black. Everything is blue, simply because they couldn't really afford to do black, and they just had to work with what they got with. So like grass is blue, and the sky is blue, castles are blue, stones are blue, potatoes are blue. I don't know why the potatoes are blue, but they're blue. And so
it's a versatile colour.
It's a very versatile colour. It comes with a wide range of things. And whereas the Black Cauldron had production issues right from the start, it was an adaptation of a book that's very good. There's two books it's sort of borrowing from. One is called The Black Cauldron, but the first one is called The Power of Three, and that's the main one it borrows from that introduces all these characters. And as you're absolutely right, they didn't really know how to market it because they put it in front of test audiences, and the test audiences hated it.
Oh.
So they were stuck with this movie that they had no idea what to do. And I respect the movie because it tried to do something different, which Disney is so afraid of doing.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't really work for them. The characters weren't that likable, and it was a little bit scary. Although I defy you to tell me that the best Disney villain is not John Hurt as the Horned King.
I love all the details and how dark it can get. I think it was a bit of a palate cleanser as a kid because you do particularly like you're subjected to Disney so much as a kid, and I love.
You come off The
Disney
Rescuers,
films.
and then you go to this. It's very tonally different.
Yeah, I watched a couple of months ago. I introduced my partner to Basil the Great Mouse Detective.
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, that is a good one. And the Ratimus. Is it Ratimus? The singing dance.
Ratigan.
Ratigan.
Oh,
sorry.
Ratigan. Oh, Ratigan.
Yeah. I'm not going to sing. I can't sing. But he's such a good
he's
villain
played
as well.
by Vincent Price as well.
Yeah.
Oh, because you can tell he had so much fun. I'm trying to remember some of his lines like, "Oh, Basil,
Yeah.
you do love your disguises."
Yeah.
Oh God.
Because it goes so like whimsy like that, and then like the cat when he's feeding all the mice,
Oh, yeah.
and they do the big song and dance number, and all of a sudden it just twists. I think that's what I love. I love it when
What
characters
did you
go
call me?
Yeah.
It's-
Yes.
Oh God, it's. I mean, I have my only issue with that movie is like I know it's based on a novel. Like Disney steals from everything these days. It's always stolen from things. But I always wondered when I was a kid. So they're mice that act exactly like Holmes and Watson and Moriarty, but they're living under those characters, and I'm not connected with them really. Like I don't get it. It's like if there was just like a dog out there somewhere that was living my life. And it didn't call itself Scott. It was just like hosting its own podcast, wearing its own set of like red and blue 3D glasses. But it was like called Jeff the Podcasting Dog. And it had no connection to me and was living like in my flat, but I didn't know about it. That would be weird.
Yeah, because we set it up, don't we? That don't you actually see like Sherlock's home
Silhouette.
and his feet, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, maybe there's like one under your desk right now. Like if something like nibbles on your foot, then.
Oh my God! Imposter mouse, get back here! And don't show that scene where the scary bat jumps out of the audience right at the very beginning of the movie because that terrified people. What was that word for that? Just bat goes like nah, and it's like poor little Scottish mouse girl gets traumatized. Oh God! See, that's the thing. See, kids' movies these days are so afraid to go dark. Back in the 80s and the 90s, we had things like Don Bluth and those Disney movies and a few others that were not afraid to traumatize kids. And here's the thing, though. Kids could handle it. And they're so afraid to make scary movies for kids nowadays. Sometimes you get one person that occasionally makes something a bit scary. There was that live-action movie, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. That was like a horror live-action movie for not really kids, but like teenagers and stuff. It was marketed towards a younger crowd. And that was quite good, even to someone who does not like horror like me. But actually, I take that back. I like horror. I just don't like being scared.
Yeah.
This is why I like your work so much, is because you can have this gothic aesthetic, but when I'm reading it on the page, it's less trepidatious for me. It's when it's
you.
Yeah, you lull me into a false sense of security. It's when it's right in front of me that I get the piss scared out of me.
Yeah.
And honestly, I can trace that back to when I was younger, when I was a teenager. I was doing drama in school, and we went on a field trip to London, to the West End, to see this play, The Woman in Black. You ever seen that?
I've not seen it. Heard of it. Know a little bit about it.
It's a great play. Fucking scared my mind out. I've seen creepy old lady in every single dark reflection everywhere I look for the next year. So I like safe, palatable horror. I like the atmosphere. I like Dracula. I like Frankenstein. I like Dungeons and Dragons when playing Curse of Strahd, things like that, because I can just sort of remove myself from the immediacy of the fear.
You see, I had the opposite. As a kid, I must have been about 6, maybe 7. My family did like a trip to London, and my grandparents took us to see Phantom of the Opera. I had no idea what it was. When you're a kid, just like, where we're going, and we're just like, oh, this place. We're just going to this thing, and they sit you down, and then it happens.
No context.
No context. I've never been in a theatre before. Like, what is going on? And then we watched Phantom of the Opera, and I absolutely loved it. I know it's not everyone's.
Phantom of the Opera is here, stalking this teenage girl. It's kind of creepy.
Yeah, the more you read into it, it's like, oh, this is not okay. This is.
Andrew Lloyd Webber, are you sure this is the hero of the story? You seem to be portraying him as a really bad guy. Or what's that? You're going to do a sequel? Okay, and you're going to make him the definitive good guy by making the previous good guy just a complete another arsehole? What's that? It's not going to be very good? That's great. You go ahead and do that while you're, going over your divorce again.
You see, I don't think there's any. I think everyone's morally grey in Phantom of the Opera, even the protagonist, because they do. God, like, if we're going into it so much, like, the Phantom, it does some horrible stuff. He, hangs people, he traumatizes the theatre, he destroys things.
For mildly
he kills
sassing
people.
him. He kills a stagehand who's just like, oh, watch out, the Phantom of the Opera will get you. And he's like, so you have chosen death.
Yeah, exactly. Like, he has no middle ground. It's always extremes with everything he does. But
it's even worse when you read the book, because the book, like many of those stories at the time, played sort of like a true crime novel, and it talks about and this guy Eric, the Phantom of the Opera, in like the movies and there's other stories in the stage production. He shows like, oh, he just kind of like has lived in the opera his whole life. In the book, he traveled the world as part of a circus, as an expert knife thrower, and eventually got upgraded to working for like a Maharaja or something, like a Middle Eastern queen or something, as their own personal assassin and torturer, designing like Saw-style torture devices for people, to the point where the queen's like, oh god, we've made a monster out of this guy, he's too powerful, trying to kill him, fail, he runs away, and sort of construct his elaborate death torture devices underneath the Paris Opera House, including like a room that fills with like boiling water or something, and like Punjab lassos and like spike stick pits and stuff like that. It's
all the hits.
All the hits. It's truly horrifying.
I mean, there's no like blood splashback in if you actually go see the musical version.
Yeah.
That's more palatable.
There's a sword fight in the
There's a sword fight.
Film.
There's fire. There's the chandelier. The chandelier is absolutely incredible when that
Behold,
happens.
I have the power of flash paper. Ooh.
Yeah, I loved that as a kid. If you're in a situation where you know nothing about context of what you're watching, and you're just taking everything and looking at every little detail. I think what I love so much is, as I was looking in over the little details and other set pieces, even as a kid, you can see in scenes the Phantom running along the head.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Like they did. I mean, obviously they've got different actors doing it at different points to like get that immersion. But I just love that a scene can be going on and the Phantom will be watching, and it'll be from. It's almost like when he
creeps over the statue after main girl and main guy, I forget their names. Christine. And he like climbs over the statue at the top of the opera house. It's like, oh, he was there the whole time, and it makes you paranoid. That's something actually that the Woman in Black play did as well, because in the program there's 3 actors in it: a guy, an older guy, and the old woman playing the Woman in Black. And the 2 guys play most of the characters, because they're framing it in the sense of like they're making a play and they're playing as different characters. But on the program, it has the 2 actors playing the 2 guys. It doesn't include the bio of the woman playing the Woman in Black. She's just not on there. And so it makes you think, oh God, is she really here? Because the whole idea of the Woman in Black is she curses one person and only they can see her. So, God.
That's a nice touch.
Yeah.
That's a really nice touch.
Little things like that. Also, I saw that actually. I know I'm not a horror guy, but I keep on seeing horror films. I don't know what's wrong with me. In the film Hereditary, because you see little things in the background, like hidden in shadows, and one minute there, and the next minute not. It's like, oh God, United States of Tara, what are you doing? Why?
Yeah, there's a really good. Which Uncharted is it? I think it's Uncharted 2. Is it Uncharted 2 with the Yetis? Do we know?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, like the first time you see them, there's a they purposely frame it so you're climbing on this cliff, and the cliff's like in the foreground as well. There's some rocks, and then just as you move your character out of frame, the cliff moves, and it's one of the Yetis. And that's the first
Ooh.
introduction to them. It's like something moves, and you're like, "Did that just happen?" I love it when stuff like that happens. Like, you know, when you're
Less is
kind of
more.
aware of your surroundings, and suddenly something pops.
I love stories that make you question the reality. This is something I think Hereditary actually could have done better, because as good as film as it is, and it's an amazing film, they talk about characters having a history of mental illness in their family, and it makes me think like, oh, is all these demonic possession things that are happening, is that actually happening? And they could have made it a little bit more ambiguous in my mind. It turns out it's not, and that's fine. They didn't need to show, oh no, it's all in the head. But I like it when the audience questions like, wait, is this what's happening? What's going on? And it's better when you do that with little hints, little like tiny hints, as opposed to just like a revelation, like, oh, it turns out it was all a dream, and like that's fine.
Yeah.
But that's having the rug pulled out under you, narratively speaking, and I don't like that.
Yeah, you can't pull a Deus Ex Machina. You've got to have like justification. You've got to leave the paper trail, otherwise it doesn't work. I love Shutter Island for it. Like,
Yeah.
I when I first saw the trailer for Shutter Island, they marketed it as like this guy on an island with a gun. Like, they purposely included shots of him.
We put
with a
Leonardo
rifle.
DiCaprio on an island. Let's see what he does next.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't a great trailer for what it is, and I think I saw it when it came to DVD, and it's one of my favorite films. I absolutely love it, and I've
Who
tried to
directed
read
that?
the. Oh, I'm not gonna remember. Sorry.
I want to
Quick
say
Google.
Martin Scorsese, but that's just because I associate him with Leonardo DiCaprio. That's probably wrong.
No, someone will correct us. Someone will.
Yeah.
Scorsese
Hey, let's
can
get
have
on
it.
it.
Yeah,
We
Scorsese
can't
can
possibly
have it.
Google this in the moment.
But I love that film for how when the twist happens and then you get the different perspective, and it is all there with like the dialogue from Mark Ruffalo's character, and like it's just really well done. Like, and it's one of the films that I love so much. But I don't know if you have this issue. If you love a film so much and it's one of your favorites, you try and read the book, and the film's just playing in your head, and you can't get over the hump. Like, I've done it. I must have tried to read like Howl's Moving Castle for at least 5 times, and every time I get about 3-4 chapters in, and the film just starts playing in my head, I'm reading it,
Yeah.
and I can't get over it because I love the film so much.
I've had that sometimes, but I've also had the reverse of that, where actually I have a better experience of the book after. Because, I mean, when I was a teenager, I was obsessed with trailers for this upcoming film called Jumper, starring, I know, Hayden Christensen. I know. But it looked really cool about this guy who could teleport all over the world and he gets up to adventures. I thought, this looks really cool. And I was like obsessed with the trailers. It finally came out and I watched it and I thought, oh, this is not that great. And then I finally got around to reading books a few years ago, at least the first book. And it's rapidly different from the movie. And that worked in its favor. I found myself getting more invested in this more down-to-earth, more focused, less action orientated. Like in the movie, Samuel L. Jackson is the leader of this pseudo-religious cult that are trying to exterminate the Jumpers. No such thing in the book, and it's really interesting. Honestly, it's because I mean, when you look at something like Harry Potter, where I went from the books to the movies, and it's just like, this is not what the books are like. How dare you? Why is his eyes wrong? His eyes are supposed to be green. And then you get the reverse. I think it's often interesting. I think it just depends. I mean, with those books that you were reading, was it a case of the movies were just better in your mind, or you just had a clearer picture of the movies in your mind?
I think it's because I'm a visual guy, because I
Yeah.
draw. It's what I do for a living. Like, I think it's not necessarily always about the story points, which obviously I love the stories, but also how they're shot and how they're framed. And I think the issue I've got is that when I read a book, I visualize it in my head. I see it in the beats, and not everyone reads it that way, but I feel like I'm watching a film in my head when I'm really in tune with it. Because I would, like, if you give me a book and I can have the option to draw it, I probably would. I'd just be like, oh yeah, this is how I'd frame it, and like my brain just ticks into that. And like as I'm reading a scene, I'll be like, oh, I wouldn't do it from this way, I'll do it from this way, and it's just how I tick. And it's I think it's why comics work so well for me, because I can see the beats very easily and very clear.
See,
So
when
yeah,
I
it's hard.
visualize it in my head, it's weird. I sort of put myself from the perspective of whoever's doing the narration, whose perspective
right.
it is in the story.
Mhm.
That's just how my mind works.
Mhm.
I can't really do like a third person thing. It's not like a conscious thing. It's just how my brain operates, and I don't
Yeah.
have a solid visualization of the world around them. It's sort of
Mhm.
like in the center of the action and what's going on, it's very clear, but as you sort of branch out, it gets a little bit hazy in my mind. I don't know why.
Yeah. I found that as I go, like you won't necessarily do it for the first chapter of the book, but as you're getting like a first quarter in, then like to me that world expands out quite a bit. And like if you said if you said to me this character goes left instead of right down the street, my brain just starts automatically like fleshing it out.
Yeah.
I think that's just partly how I take, and it does help that I have been working on a fantasy book for 3 years, so I've had the opportunity to be doing this while working.
And
you can
speaking of,
see
it's
it.
probably time we actually delve deeper into that.
Sure,
But
sure.
before we do that, we've got some more ads. Check them out. So, obviously, we talked about this before, so if I ask you questions that I've already asked you back in 2018, I am sorry.
Yeah.
What the fuck is Candles about?
Okay, Candles is about a young girl who sets off to steal magic from an evil witch to use it to save a dying village.
I'm sorry I had to. It's the law.
Please tell me you had that ready because you knew I was going to say a witch.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Nailed it. So yeah, generation after generation, oh god, I'm going to butcher it now. Generation after generation, people in this village are told never to use magic. Grace, our protagonist, has some magic capability, but she is told not to use it. And
Don't use your special secret protagonist gift.
Exactly. I mean, it's because people have only ever seen the bad side of magic in this world. So in this world, magic is a bit of a taboo. You're outsiders. It's almost got like magic in this world as Parker Luck from Spider-Man. Like Spider-Man, Peter Parker will always have bad luck. It's kind of got an element of that to it. So on one side, you've got Grace, who's going off to steal magic from an evil witch. On the other side, which is our B plot, we've got Idris and Ava, Idris is this talented sorcerer, and he's got this brilliant apprentice, Ava, who's much younger, who's adopted and taken in under his wing. And they're cast out of their town as magic users because Ava has an obsession with fire and keeps getting him into trouble. When you read the
Obsession
book,
with fire always leads to good things.
Oh yeah, I mean, when you read the book, you'll see the dynamic between these two. It's like a really good banter back and forth of father-daughter, chaotic. They get cast out of their town as magic users, and they also find the source of their on a quest to stop a plague that's gone across the land called Darkbark, which
Gross!
which the evil witch has cast over the land. So it's like a quest. You think these characters are all going to come together, and it's sort of like now is the like this world has been lived in for years before now, and now it's come to the breaking point where it has to be stopped. Otherwise, there's not going to be anyone left. It's like that ticking clock scenario.
I can't imagine any sort of ecological disaster happening in our real world that would lead to a ticking clock scenario,
I know. Like, I swear I've been working on this before anyone knew about the pandemic or anything like that.
I'm not even just like
so
global
happens.
warming or anything like that. It's just like, let's delay until it's absolutely the 11th hour, and then we'll send like one magical wunderkind to deal with it.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that when people read it, like particularly with my kind of work and when I get to do the writing, I feel like I get ideas that people feel are a bit like they know this thing, and then I've done my twist on it, I've done my take on it. So there's a little bit of there's a bit of elements of I kind of know what this is, and then you read it and like it's not what I thought it was, but it's still kind of in my comfort zone of what if you like fantasy, if you like fairy tales, if you like spooky monsters, you'll like this book. But for my take on it, it's not just monsters for the sake of monsters.
Because that's the thing. See, I love high fantasy, but I also love like fairy tale fantasy. Like I like Dark Crystal, Pan's Labyrinth, anything by Brian Froud, Labyrinth as well as Pan's Labyrinth. Oh god, we're just going to end up talking about fantasy movies again. That's all we're going to end up doing.
Fuck it. I watched Pan's Labyrinth last week. I like it. The ending, I'm still can't decide which one. Right, that's it. I'm not going to say anything else.
I mean, there's this. This is the thing. This is the annoying thing with a pandemic right now. There's this theme park in the Netherlands that I really want to go to. It's called Efteling, and it's basically just like it's got like fairy tales and a bunch of fantasy stuff, but it looks so fucking cool because it's got that animatronics everywhere, and it's got that Brian Froud sort of classic design element to it. It's my aesthetic basically,
Yeah.
And it's got rides, it's got restaurants, it's got this one ride that's really racist that I want to avoid. Look it up. It's a whole thing. It's called Monsieur Cannibal. You can just imagine.
I've seen pictures of this place, but I didn't know about the racist ride. But other than that, looks great.
It's caused controversy from day one. No one wants it, but it's still been kept up at the park, and I really don't know why. I know certain continental European countries have difficulties when it comes to representing race. I don't know if that's also in the Netherlands, but there's that Christmas character, Zwart Piet. Can't remember. It's basically Santa's helper, but he's in blackface.
No, not okay.
I don't care what your demographics are in your country. That's racist no matter where you go. So stop doing stuff like that. But I still do want to go to the park, obviously avoiding that, but just enjoying that world because I like the transportation aspect of it.
Yeah.
I like getting the escapism element, getting immersed in those complete worlds. And honestly, looking at the artwork, that feels like what you've done because I like the idea of like luring people in with something like familiar, like, oh, this is recognizable, and then boom, sucker, you're trapped in an original world.
Yeah, I mean, I've when this entire idea came from me looking out my window and seeing some flickers of light in between lines, and I thought they were floating candles. Turns out it's just light coming through the trees, and it just looks like speckles of light. But this idea of like
the house behind the trees was on fire, and you ignored it. You didn't call the fire people.
Yeah, I'm just that kind of guy. Well, I like fire. I like painting it, maybe. No, definitely not.
There's more. No.
I thought you were going for burn, baby, burn. If I'm honest, but well done.
Okay, there's only so many clips I can have. It's not like I'm not God. I don't have access to any sort of meme at my fingertips. I have to pre-plan these things.
So you're not telling me you're some kind of like podcast deity that has magical powers?
I am saying that. No, ignore that. I am saying that, in fact.
So
I want people to believe that so much.
Anyway,
pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
So I built it around this idea of these floating candles, and to me, I was like, why would candles be floating in the forest? Which led to it, Evil Witch, an enchanted forest, and
Will o' the Wisp sort of aesthetic.
Yeah, I've built it. The entire world is built around this idea, which is me answering this question. I might not tell you this question right away because I'd spoil the book, but there is legs to this world. I've fleshed it out so I know what happens like years before this story is told and years after it, so there's an element of environmental storytelling as well. I mean, for anyone who's not that into fantasy and likes a bit of fairy tale, or I like Studio Ghibli but I'm not that into fantasy, I will say this is an all ages book. It is designed and written that someone who's quite young, say 12 and upwards, can easily pick up this book and read it. If an adult reads it, you'll get more out of it. You'll read into it more. There's lots to unpack. You know when like a kid watches something that's like, oh, it's just a person throwing fireballs and a sword, great.
Yeah.
And then an adult reads it and they go, oh, this is
the
tackling
symbolism.
Yeah, the symbolism, the hidden meaning, or why is that environment like that? Why has that been set on fire? Oh, don't worry about it, it's okay. And then you can read more into it.
I love background lore. I love worlds that have history to it. This actually was something, again, going back to Brutal Legend, that I really like, because Brutal Legend is it's a fantasy world, but it's based on like an Iron Maiden album cover, and it's got like titans and gods of metal and rock and all sorts of monsters and demons and undead and Jack Black in a car driving over all those monsters and demons, and it's great. But it's also got there's these little things called like legend laws where you can hunt down all these things across the world, and it plays a little cutscene detailing the history of this world, done by a great narration by this voice actor Corey Burton, and great artwork detailing like the formation of this world, where the gods came from, where the creatures that we're seeing now in this world came from, and it has its own mythos. Like it started like this great fire beast called Ormagoden, who's like this metal boar demon thing racing across the sky in a fiery metallic blaze of death and metal. And the world got really formed when a bunch of demons captured him. They were called the Tainted Ones. The Tainted Coil, rather. They captured him, and rather than be taken alive, he exploded and gave the world metal and blood and noise. And that's how we got like rock in this world, and rock in this world can like blow things up. If you play a guitar, that can cause something to go on fire. And little things like that can make all the difference, because this does not get told to us in dialogue in the video game. You have to seek it out yourself to learn more about the world and give yourself context. And it's beautiful and kind of, and I love it when stuff like that is in the background.
Yeah, I think it's important that for the people who want that, you can go full fantasy nerd. You can eat everything beyond the meat and potatoes, and you can get really into the nitty gritty of it, and you'll be like nerding out over it and geeking out, like, oh my god, this means this and this, and then this happened. Oh wait, what does this little Easter egg mean? It's great, but I know for some people, like I imagine there's people who play Brutal Legend who just did the story and were like, I might do a little bit of a side bit. I think that's good for games doing that. I hate it when games just put it in for filler and just for the sake of it. Like I think you might see a theme of this. I'm sick of things just having filler for the sake of filler. Like
that seems like a combo to you. Congratulations, you got a cookie.
But yeah, I mean, would you say that Brutal Legend has aged quite well then? Because I know it has
it's aged very well in terms of the characters and the story and the atmosphere. The issue people had with it was the gameplay, because at first it seems like a hack and slash game that works very well, but then it combined like real-time strategy elements to it, and they didn't really gel very well for a lot of people. I didn't mind it personally, because I just liked being Jack Black and just like setting people on fire with my guitar and shocking them with my axe. And you can upgrade your car to shoot machine gun bullets. And the guy who upgrades your car for you, that gives you the ability to do that, is Ozzy Osbourne. So
of course he is. You can tell that's been made with love. Like, that couldn't exist if they didn't love what they were doing.
They had fucking Lemmy Kilmister on it. So, it's one of those things where you are rewarded for being invested in the story. I think that's always great.
Yeah, I think you have to be. Like, can you imagine if you went on like a massive side quest and then you got nothing at the end of it? Because that never happens. But like, it'd leave a bad taste in your mouth.
A good example of this being done bad, actually, is, and I will bring this up at every available opportunity, the Star Wars sequel movies, because there is so much context missing from those movies as to how we ended up here, some of which is answered, most of which is not. And the impression that I always got from those movies, and I apologize, this is just my perspective, was, well, we've got these graphic novels coming out that explain it, and it's just like, motherfucker, I should not have to do homework in order to understand this movie. I get that you don't want to expo dump us, but for God's sake, just give us a reason to be invested, And I'm not going to go on about those movies because, frankly, just no.
Yeah, it's funny you should mention that, because World of Warcraft had a similar problem with its lore. Like, I used to play up until Lich King. After the Lich King, I had dabbled. I've not been on it.
When you started having a life again.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, uni, Comic-Con career, kind of kicked in. But I love the story of Warcraft. I love the lore, and the Lich King and the Burning Crusade. Absolutely, brilliant. But the World of Warcraft hit a point where it caught up with the story of Warcraft 3, and then they had to develop it past that. And when it eventually got there, the main game, if you're playing online month to month, like, there was the stories there, but there's things that weren't explained. And they said there's this massive encyclopedia we've written, which actually goes into all the afterlife and all the, for all the stuff that people want. But I feel like the game
homework. It's just more homework.
Yeah, instead, like, you could have told that in such interesting ways, and they kind of like made it so you just ice skated through the game, and it didn't really matter. You were just slaying stuff for the sake of it.
A good example of that sort of idea of having an encyclopedia done well, actually, I think, is the Mass Effect games, because you learn a lot about the world by just going through it and talking with people and interacting with all these characters. But if you want additional context that isn't necessary, but it's still there if you want it, it's got a codex full of like the history and the lore and stuff. but you don't really need it. It's just there if you want to just like, I fancy a bit of reading right now. It's not required. And yeah, lore should not be a crutch in order to have a good time.
Mm-hmm.
It should be an added bonus.
Yeah, I agree. I think throwing it all the way back to what we've already talked about, the Dark Souls games are very good with environmental storytelling. Like, I know they have this reputation of being quite grueling and difficult, and they are, but they're not unfair because it teaches you to learn the game at different points. But you'll come across like, why is there they go so deep that will be like, why is this dead body here of this like ancient dead wolf? And then it might not make any sense at the moment, but when you play more into the level, you're like, oh, it's because this happened, or this is
this is much worse.
Yes, exactly. I mean, you can pretty much say that every time you get good at Dark Souls, you can play that sound effect.
Hooray! It's getting harder.
Yeah. But that was actually a bit of an influence on Candles, because there is stuff there that isn't just in the environment or in the map. So I've drawn the map of the world out, and you can actually follow the characters.
I love a good
afterwards.
map. I fucking love a good map. As soon as I mentioned that I was reading The Final Empire, the first in the Mistborn trilogy, and I know it was good. As soon as I opened up, it's like, oh, there's a map of the world. Great. There's a map of the city too? 2 maps.
I know. Like, my partner, she has a thing that if she picks up a fancy book and it's got a map, she's like, oh, I'm in for a good time. Like, all good books have maps.
It makes the world feel more concrete, you know?
Mm-hmm. And you don't have to explore every element on the map. Like, I mean, some of them are a bit throwaways for me, like, or like things that I know the characters aren't getting to, but it's nice it's there, and even in the back of my head, I'd be like, oh, this might mean this thing. But it was a nice little thing.
In Lord of the Rings, they don't go to all the places in Middle Earth.
Yeah, that's what I loved about doing the map, because I spent a while doing the line work, getting it all fleshed out and make sure it all makes sense where the characters go. But then I was like, this tower doesn't have to be called anything specific. This little Easter egg in the corner, I'm just going to call it Londo's Gate or something, and like tie it into a Dark Souls place, or there's like Warcraft ones, or there's Lord of the Rings. Like, for anyone who's like really into fantasy, I'm like, here's a little nod for you. Like, here's it's not that world, but like, here's a little snippet showing that I do actually love these things.
Huzzah! A man of quality.
Just read it. I mean, I love that, and I also love. I mean, because it gives you so many world building opportunities. Because it's like, ooh, what are people who live there are like? What's the culture over here? And it allows for diversity and real depth to the world. And I mean, this is something that, again, I'm going to test your nerd knowledge. You ever read the Earthsea books by Ursula K. Le Guin?
He's happy. He's happy, Capers.
Happy. So, right. Bear me 1 second. My dad bought me the miniseries, like we did years ago. Loved it. I absolutely loved it. I watched it so many times. I mean,
really?
It combines like more book 1 and 2, and I actually really liked it. Bear in mind, I had no context for what Earthsea is.
I feel the sickening threat of brutal honesty, and I'm wildly uncomfortable.
I'm gonna go down in your opinion. Tales from Earthsea, the Studio Ghibli film. First time I watched it, I didn't know what was going on. Second time, I learned to love it. And as I've been finishing Candles, I've got really into audiobooks because I've been painting a lot of fire, trees, forests, and a lot of things that are, I'm painting another rock here. I could do with something to occupy my brain, which is why a podcast or an audiobook comes in handy. So I've just finished the Earthsea trilogy. Like last week, I finished the 3rd book while I've been painting Candles, which has been.
Well, there's more books after that. Don't forget.
There are, yeah. I've got the first 3, and I thought I'll get those because audiobooks can be quite expensive depending on where you get them from.
I just wait a month and then it's like, ooh, free credit. I'm gonna spend that on whatever.
Yeah, the problem is I got through like Dune in a week.
Oh yeah.
So I was like, bear in mind, I've been at my desk for like 10, 12 hours a day. I'm like, I'm going to need some books or podcasts. But anyway, Earthsea, I loved it, and it pains me because it's a slight influence on Candles. In Earthsea, how they have to say the name for the spell to work. That influence...
those goes back. That's an old folkloric thing. The idea that names have power. That's present in lots of different cultures.
Yeah, but the influence of Candles is that every time someone uses magic, I've got this spell language that pops up, so they have to say the words, otherwise it doesn't work. And it's a nice little aesthetic for the
verbal
comic,
component is just as important as somatic.
Yeah, so that actually came from Earthsea, but it came from Earthsea the miniseries, not Earthsea the book. But now that now I've read the books, I'll just after this interview, I'll just say it came from.
Honestly, no. I think you and I are the only ones that remember that miniseries, just because they weren't that good. But
I haven't seen it in years, but I loved it when it was on. I used to have it on DVD and watch
I don't
it
like
all
it
the time.
because it's whitewashed. This is my big problem. I mean, there's other problems to it, but Ursula K. Le Guin was very adamant about making sure that she had a diversity of characters and that the main characters were not white, because her father was like an anthropologist who interacted and was very respectful of all these different cultures, and so that was a huge influence for her. And she fought hard against publishers to make sure that it wasn't a generic white guy on the cover of her books, rather than Ged, the main character. And so for them to, the miniseries just to go around and just completely ignore that, and they shut her out of production pretty damn hard. They made her promises, they broke those promises. And I know people say, oh, but that's standard in Hollywood. I don't care. It's professional courtesy. It's not okay.
It's really not okay.
That's a big black mark against that miniseries for me. I did try watching the Ghibli movie, but I couldn't really get into it. It was just like, okay, this is fine. This is interesting. I'm bored. I'm moving away.
Yeah, it's now that I've read the books, like I can see the elements of what they tried to get in there, but they basically, the idea was Miyazaki was meant to direct it, and they gave it to his son. Like the promises he was meant to do it, and then it just turned out he was working on other things. They said, we'll give it to his son and he'll do it. And they just kind of like took elements from different books and tried to make a film out of it rather than just do one. I think it was kind of like
strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
You know, when you give someone like the toy box and they want to play with all the toys and then make their own story, it's kind of like that. And there are I feel like there's some really cool set pieces out of it, but it doesn't. Like, there's bits of the necromancer in there. There's bits of the kid from the third book is in there, but it's not really him. And there's Kingdom and Sparrowhawk's there, but he's not really there that much. And yeah, it's weird. I feel like that is sort of like known as the bastard child of the Ghibli films.
Yeah, it is. The red-headed stepchild in many ways. It's there. It's fine. We're going to go watch Princess Mononoke now, if that's all right with you. Thanks.
Yeah, we'll just go back to the hits.
So you mentioned a sorcerer, Idris. I will not make a reference to that actor. I will not make a reference to that actor. Other people can have the name. It's fine. So for capers out there who don't play D&D, what's a sorcerer?
A sorcerer is a bit more of a chaotic wizard. So if you imagine a wizard is more book smart and learning that way, a sorcerer is more, they'll probably get a bit more naturally talented.
They're the jocks of magic.
Yeah, they're the jocks of magic, and they're a bit more chaotic.
I'm playing a sorcerer right now in Strahd.
Oh, are you? Very
like
nice.
A half-elven sorcerer, divine soul sorcerer named Dr. Tobias Virgil, who specializes in like disease and poison spells, and he's not happy about it.
That's cool. I actually made Idris as a D&D character for a one-shot to see how he'd play.
You do that with all your OCs. You're just like, okay, writing you is not enough. I need to play you. I need to be you.
Yeah, just to tie it in, because we have to keep tying it in, if we hit stretch goals, one of the stretch goals that I want to do is make the three main protagonists of Candles into character sheets so you can pick them up and use them, which would be really cool. Because they all have...
Will you do that for 5th edition and 3.5 edition, or just 5th edition?
I'd probably do it for 5th. I will, so people know my nerd level, like, I'm more casual D&D player, not hardcore. Like, I would love to have, like, a regular group, but I started really getting into it.
You don't have to equate the level of amount you play. If you play D&D, that's fine. That's all you need. You don't need to. It doesn't need to occupy your every waking thought like it does with me.
Yeah, or you're fully in. You're like, I guess you're doing Strahd. You know all your little ins and outs. You're fully gone.
Well, I'm still learning. I've only been playing it for a couple of years now. I got into it pretty late. I got into it because I'd heard about it and I thought, want to get into it. And then I was on a bus going home up here in Edinburgh. And this guy in front of me sort of turned around, and I had like a jacket with badges on, like geek badges, because I display my nerd cred wherever I go. So people know that I am the alpha. And he was just like, do you play a D&D? Because we've got a group, like an adventurous league group going at this place in Edinburgh. It's called Mox in the Hole. It's a great place. It's not currently open right now because of obvious reasons. But if you want to play D&D, we'd love to see you there. And that's how I got into it, by a stranger initiating conversation with me on a bus. I know, the insanity.
I mean, you just got to show how nerds are lovely and have taken over the earth at this point.
Yeah, there's no gatekeeping, and he was there, and I'm still learning lots of things because I haven't played all the classes yet because there's a lot of them, and not a lot of homebrew that I've got into. But I like to think I have a working knowledge of it. But it doesn't matter a working knowledge because I'm having as much fun now as I was when I first got started, when I was playing a monk who got himself killed pretty much at level 2. God, and that's not even the first time I nearly died. I'm not going to tell that story because I've told it before, but Jesus. But here's the thing. It's something that's for anyone. It's meant to be inclusive. It's meant to be fun for everyone. And you don't have to gatekeep or say like, oh, I know more about it, therefore I'm more special. No, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah, I think I think it's definitely become so much better. I think there's a couple of people who we still need to just like go, no, like this is
that's the same
everyone.
in any sort of fandom or group or hobby.
I think I know it's the typical podcast show for it, but like Critical Role has definitely done a lot for people. Like really helped. I think that's probably what got me further into it.
They're making a show as well, also going to be on Amazon. Have you seen the latest trailer for that? They showed off the character designs. They by the same guy who did Young Justice and a bunch of other shows, and it looks fucking amazing.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they've got all the voice acting talent there. They've clearly taken the time with it. The Kickstarter did absolutely insane numbers, and it's just so much love for it. Like they were saying that,
you're seeing similar things. I mean, obviously not quite the same. Like for those who don't know, the Critical Role Kickstarter, they wanted to make a TV show. They had an initial goal of $750,000, which is pretty low for an animated TV show. And they made by the end of the campaign, they made $11 million, $3 million by the end of the first day.
Yeah, got Amazon Prime. Like Amazon took it on because of that as well. Because they had been pitching it, but no, everyone was like an animated D&D show. Like they just didn't get it. And I think
because they ignore. This is the thing that Hollywood doesn't get in TV and movies. They don't get that you can make something when it has a huge fan base behind it. Critical Role had a huge fan base, as evidenced by the Kickstarter. Internet personalities have huge fan bases behind them, like web series, podcasts and stuff like that. And the traditional, more stuffy studio executives just don't get that they have these huge audiences ready to take whatever they give them, but they don't really take a chance on it because, the internet. I mean, who's on the internet?
Yeah, I think that goes a long way for people who need to understand what you're going for. I mean, to circle it all the way back with my book, because I have no dignity at all left. It's all gone. When I pitched Candles to Cast Iron Books, Lizzie originally. Lizzie knew exactly what I was going for. And in the hands of a different editor and publisher, they would have forced me to age up or change what Candles is, because Candles is meant to look lighthearted, but is meant to be very serious in places. It is meant to have that Studio Ghibli influence. And I spoke to some editors before, and they're like, "I don't know what Studio Ghibli is." And I'm like,
"Sorry, these are professional editors who haven't even heard of." I'm not one of those people who thinks, "Oh my god, you've never seen this." That's fine. People have blind spots, but you've got to at least, if you work in the entertainment industry, you've got to at least heard of these big names.
Exactly, it's bonkers. I mean, sometimes I'm personally terrible with names, but if you show me it, I'll be like, "Oh, right, of course it's. I have seen this. I've watched this." I'm names are just awful for me. But even I could name a couple of head studios and things like that. But it's amazing though, because this is the key thing of what a publisher and editor do, is they help harness what your idea. But if they don't know what you want to go for from the get-go, you could end up with some really bad things, which is why you end up with terrible films and terrible books, or things that don't have the right heart and soul into them. I know I'm fluttering my own ego saying this, but Candles is very much a book for me. Like, I want this book to exist.
Some of the best stories I've ever made have been made because the creators just want to see that story. That's why we have Star Wars and Indiana Jones, because George Lucas and Steven Spielberg thought these ideas sounded really cool, and they wanted to just watch the movie. If they weren't going to make them, they would have helped someone else make them.
Yeah.
And those are some of the greatest stories because they're made with passion and love and an understanding of how these things work.
I think particularly like every creative project has issues that you have to come up, whether that's financially or if you have a delay like I did. It's not uncommon, but it's knowing when you've got something and you want to fight for it and push it and just, again, do that thing of just say fuck it, because I could have gone off and done very nice. Like I could have gone and done another book. I could have gone, oh, it's not worked out, I'll go do something else. But like, this is one I really believe in. Like, I think you can tell with the artwork that I've put absolutely everything at it and thrown everything at this book to make sure it's what I want to be.
This passion. This has, I mean, it's got everything I like about it, and it's what I love about it is it's so cinematic. It doesn't feel static or stale. It feels like these classic, like I imagine it's what you see in your head when you read a fantasy book, brought to life. Bringing it back to that, it's again, it's transportive. It brings you into another world.
Thank you. I mean, that's what we want. I mean, I don't know about you, but have you seen magic in media where, I mean, there's always going to be like one or two shots in the book when you do this, but when a character just throws up the hand and then magic happens, I find it quite boring. Which is, I think, one of the labels I had for Idris, one of the protagonists, is parkour wizard. So whenever he's using magic, he's not a static character. Like, his style of fighting is very fluid, and there's jumps of movement. And
I'm imagining in my head, like, I know it's not parkour, but it's like magic capoeira. You know, like that Brazilian dance fighting sort of thing. You know, I mean, that extra layer. You know,
yeah, like Avatar: The Last Airbender was really good for it. The animated series, not the film. We won't talk about that, but like that action and movement.
I keep getting flashbacks. Jesus, oh God.
And that's when I got mad.
But I think it's important, like, that's how I want to do magic in this world, and the action in particular. Like, I mean, every character has their own movements, but Idris in particular will not sit still when he's fighting.
Because the best magic systems are one that understand that magic is supposed to have a cost. You're supposed to give something to get something, and sometimes the most simplest way of doing that is just energy. You've got to expel some sort of physical effort in order to bend the fabric of reality.
Yeah, like, particularly like things like the body language changes, like even if like you've got a little bit of fire or a spell going in one direction, it's really handy if your character has capes or a bit of like loose clothing or a scarf or something, because then you can show the action. Yeah, the switch, and it's like a really known thing to do, but you know, superheroes have capes. It's really handy for showing the action and the movement.
Doctor Strange did that quite well.
Yeah, I'd love to, like, it. You know, one of those pie in the sky dreams. If I got to do like a one shot Doctor Strange story, I would have an absolute
fantastic.
I'd have a ball at doing that.
You basically did an old school trippy Doctor Strange book with the mind of James Fangal.
Yeah, like, that is trippy, that is weird and wonderful, and a very different kind of book. But I think you can tell that I like doing surreal horror and fantasy and weird stuff, but make it palatable. Like,
I think we get that.
Yeah, should know it by now if you know my work. But yeah, magic is, I think it's very easy to just make something stale, because I could draw any character and put some swishy lines around it and make it look magical, but you have to, there's like cause and effect, there's consequences to everything. So whether that's this character has a secret mana bar, and as he's doing more weird stuff, like he's getting tired, I need to show that, otherwise he can just do anything willy-nilly.
What was, I can't remember, I think it was Brandon Sanderson who has, like, I'm going to look it up right now just so I can say, he's got like the rules for a magic system that I think is fantastic, and every author should look over, because, I mean, there's different sort of magic systems. There's a hard magic, soft magic system, but these are called, it's called Sanderson's Laws of Magic, and there's 3 laws. An author's ability to solve conflict with magic is directly proportional to how well the reader understands said magic. 2, weaknesses, limits, and costs are more interesting than powers. And 3, the author should expand on what's already part of a magic system before something entirely new is added, as this may otherwise entirely change how the magic system fits into the fictional world. Also, there is a zeroth law, as in just rule 0, always err on the side of what's awesome.
Yeah, but because I've had the luxury of going away and working on this, and I had like the template of the whole thing drawn out in some fashion with pencils, I've actually been able to add 1 or 2 things in, and there's been 1 or 2 times when I've messaged Cast Iron Books saying, I know it's going to make the book longer, but I want to add this in, and it does. It's not just a pretty fight scene. There is a reason for this, and like it kind of adds it. It's like here's some jazz hands, but yeah, like here's some jazz hands, but also like this is something that needs to be in the book. And every time I've gone to Cast Iron and said one of these things, they've gone, yeah, of course. Like I think they've had a level of trust in me that I'm going to push it. And particularly when I've been turning the artwork and they can see every day that new pages are going into our work Dropbox folder, they can actually say, oh, he's actually doing the work. Yeah, just let him get on with it. Yeah, because, you don't
get in authors like yourselves way, You just, you let them go. And as long as they're focused, at which you clearly are.
But it's like we'll talk about maps, and like in the first draft of like the pencils, the map was there, but it was in a really tiny panel, and like it wasn't until afterwards I was like, why is there not a map? There should be a map. This actually really helps me and the world, and there's part of the story where they actually need to look at a map. So I was like, why am I not just showing this in all its glory in like a massive double page spread, which also works for the inside cover and all that kind of jazz. But yeah, I think for me, it's handy to have that complete package of seeing the whole book to know where you can edit it as well. So you can add things in like cool fight scenes, or this magic needs adjusting, or
even just a moment where the character just like has a moment to sit and absorb what's happened. Like there's a bit where I'm looking at the Kickstarter right now. One of the characters is looking at someone, I believe, flying a broomstick, and it's just like this big long shot sort of them on the left side, person in the sky on the right, and it's just this big expanse, and they seem quite tiny, and it's just like the grassy field and the sky, and it's just a moment where you can take in this breadth of this world.
Yeah, so that's Grace. That's Grace walking back. This is after a big set piece has happened, and this is when we find Grace after it, and she's walking home and she's carrying a water bucket. So it's like a really innocent small moment, and you get to see a bit more of the world she's in. She's
but
actually
there she goes, that girl is strange, not special.
Yeah, she's actually singing a song, actually. Funny you should mention it. So there's like tiny bits of lore there that she's singing things that are actually related. Like it's almost like she's singing part of the song.
I'm guessing that's sort of like... That's Blazing Saddles.
That's Blazing Saddles, nice.
That's what they call the French mistake.
It's more, no one is safe in Blazing Saddles, just if anyone's never seen it. No one is safe.
It's not my favourite, I'm more of a Men in Tights man.
Of course you are. Of course you are.
What are you implying?
Nothing. Everyone could love a Men in Tights. In Tights, everyone. But with little things like that, like, again, it's one of those things that Grace is singing this song while walking home because it's one thing she might do. It's something you might hear in this world. Fantasy nerds will love it. Everyone else might gloss over it if you're not that into it, but it's there. It again goes all back to that world building, and stories need those quiet moments on top of the big set fireballs being thrown around. They need those quiet moments, those character beats.
Narrative needs a rhythm, and rhythms can change with the tempo based on whatever's going on. You can't just have one solid driving thing, because even if it's a good story, that can get static.
Yeah, I think for some people, when I announced that I was doing this book, they were a bit like, you're the horror guy, why are you doing all ages fantasy?
I hate that. No, don't pigeonhole people. You've done horror, you like horror, but you're a man of many talents. You have layers!
Yeah, I mean, some people who have only just seen my work recently, they don't know things like Sparks and Fallen Star, which is an all ages book. It's a dark all ages book, but it is an all ages fairy tale kind of book about a robot lost in the dark trying to find why the stars are falling out. You know, that is quite a magical, cute book. But I know people have read that book to their kids as bedtime stories. Like, I have a much younger audience for that book than, say, James Savenga, which is very dark, trippy, psychedelic thriller. But yeah, so this seemed like a bit of a left turn for some people that I was doing this type of book. But the monsters are there. I do supernatural horror. There's supernatural monsters in this. I've done kind of magical things already. I think the main thing is people aren't used to the bright daytime pages, but I've been joking about that for years, that I've not been doing beaches or pretty forests because no one wants me to draw that. They want me to draw monsters.
I'm
and
looking right
things.
now because I have this right above where I do my podcast. I have artwork that you done for me for that for a D&D thing. It was a one shot we did on this show for
Christmas special.
It was a special that we did with a bunch of us did a D&D one shot, DM'd by Alex Mirabal again. And it's a great piece of artwork. I absolutely love it. And it's just got it's got the brightness, but it's also got the dark shadows where you can see my character Moonfly jumping out from with his tongue lolling out. Hey man, I'm a Moonfly. I wondered if I should do that voice of hey man, I'm a Moonfly man. I couldn't decide. Ended with the gravelly one.
I love that you committed though, all the way for it. From the get go.
I've done some voice acting, so I try, and when I'm doing D&D, to inhabit the voice, but only when I'm doing dialogue. I'm not one of those ones that does the voice all the time, even when I'm just describing what I do. Because, I mean, that's just a bit boring for me, and also might be a bit annoying for other people. No one wants to hear someone talk like this all the time, man.
I've not gone to that level of commitment, but I've got quite a one-tone voice, so I don't really. I'm not. It's that
malleable.
good.
You can use that to describe a wide variety. Hello, I'm a goblin wizard.
Yes, just straight line all the way across, baritone. I think what I'm playing after this afternoon, I'm playing a rogue that can summon cosmic daggers.
Wow! A soul blade?
It's soul knife after class, I think. But the twist I've got with it, he's actually in a plague doctor outfit. Because he's got to wear a mask to breathe because he's been scarred by a magical monster. But the twist is actually quite a socialite. He actually likes people, but he obviously looks terrifying, so everyone's running away from him.
If Darth Vader was an it girl.
Yeah, if Darth Vader hugs, kind of thing.
Oh my god, this is this season's must-have fashion.
So that'll be quite fun. I love D&D for things like that. The little quirks you can get.
I'm limited in my voice acting because I can't do that many accents, but I try. I think I've nailed the gruff, gravelly. This is one character I want to play. He's a bugbear barbarian called Fang, like a spear, but he's just he's like a tamed bugbear. He's all right, my name's Fang, that sort of thing. I could talk about. I have a list. I have a fucking list of characters that I want to play, and I just can't stop myself. I think, because when I was doing Adventurers League, the great thing about Adventurers League is you can drop in and out of campaigns and try lots of different characters, and I got used to that, and now I'm stuck playing a character that I really like and enjoy playing, but it's all I have. And it just talks a bit like me, but it's slightly posher, I guess.
Yeah, it's nice to have those characters that you can spend that amount of time with, though, because there's only so much media that gives you that amount of time with a character. And
that's when you get the development. Oh, the juicy, glorious development.
I know. And then you get to go shopping for 2 hours and then getting all your gear and all. I love all that stuff. But it is nice. There's a nice balance between being able to do one shots with friends and then always having that campaign to go back to. That's this is the long game one. This is one that I'm going to be playing for a while.
Yeah, it's good to it shows dedication and it shows commitment, which is always important. Speaking of commitments, if people did back this Kickstarter, what might they get?
Oh, very nicely done. You're a pro.
Damn right.
It's
been over 100 episodes since we last talked about this. Yeah. I've improved.
I'll get this out of the way because I'm going to have to bring it up because it has factored in stuff. So Brexit. Postage is absolutely ridiculous for some things at the moment, particularly if you're posting really big parcels. So we've kept things fairly simple this time around. Everything fits inside a book package. So there's everything I'm going to say now will fit inside one book package. So if you're in the UK or overseas, it's as low as it can possibly be because that size we're going for is not too inflated. So you can get digital copies of the book. You can get physical copies of the book. It's in hardback and it's 144 pages. So it's a nice chunky size graphic novel to read. There's a lot to digest. You can get versions of it where I sketch in it, so you get an original sketch, book plates, bookmarks. My favourite is we're actually getting the map of the world printed, so there'll be like a fold-out map. It's one of the higher tiers because it's not cheap to make, but yeah, you can actually get a decent-sized version of the map of the world that you could put on your wall or fold out as you read the book, so you can see where the characters are.
Hey, go get it!
I want one.
Yeah, I'm so glad we've been able to do it. That was like that's probably the craziest reward we're offering, because it's hard to do.
You can tell because we've got the webcam, but I've got a bunch of posters and I'm still getting more. I got a Dark Crystal one back there.
Nice.
And there's even more that you can't see on this wall, because even though I am approaching 30 at the speed of a freight train, I'm still like I'm back in university, just posters on my wall. I don't care. Some of them are in frames. I've actually got I haven't found a place to put it yet. I've got a framed Lord of the Rings Middle Earth poster. Middle Earth map, sorry. That I actually got years ago, because I got like this big huge when I was a kid, I got a big huge set of all the action figures and included the map, and it was supposed to include a little replica of the One Ring, but someone had stolen it from the shop, like cut into the plastic and just nicked it, so I couldn't get that. It was annoying. But I got that, and I still have it, so I framed that because I'm growing up.
Was it at a stage where you've got to put it in frames and then it's okay to go on the wall?
I did that with your artwork. I framed that.
I'm so honoured. I'm part of the framed club.
Got a Mandalorian poster right here. It's not framed. No, I framed your work.
Nice. I mean, I've had messages from some people who've actually pledged to get the map, and some are going to use it in their D&D campaign. It's like they're going to use it as a template, which is quite nice because.
How long until we get official Wizards of the Coast expansion for candles?
I wish. That's like pie in the sky dream. They do it
for Rick and Morty. They can do it for you.
Yeah, well, back for Kickstarter and show that you like it. And sorry,
Don't apologise for wanting to get your good work out there. This has the Podcaper seal of approval, Capers.
Nice. I'm going to put that on every picture now that I post on social media. Podcaper.
There's a picture of my face with a thumbs up going like.
Yeah, with some shiny lights around it. Be great.
Yeah.
But yeah, the map's cool. I'm doing a couple of commissions as well. So if you're wanting your D&D character drawn in full painted inky goodness, that's an option.
I can recommend that from personal experience. I mean, you did quite a big one because it wasn't just like my character; it was 4 characters plus a big ice golem.
Yeah.
So yeah,
none of which I'd drawn before. So it was all all these need designing.
I sent you my own little designs for them that I'd done in this thing called Hero Machine, like this online Flash-based character designer, because that's all I had. Because I can't draw for shit.
Yeah, but that kind of stuff helps. I have that mentality that if you've already got stuff that you've got an idea of, do send it over me, because I can look at it and go, okay, we'll change that and things. I did someone's wizard witch character a year or two ago, and the character mini they'd given me was all one colour, and I was like, that is fine, but all the colours are just going to blend into one if I colour it. So I did different shades, or put in a really dark brown to match all these reds and oranges, and they were really happy with it. But I need having that first one to go off. It kind of goes, oh, you definitely want these colours, great, I can use that.
Because a lot of people, they have an idea in their mind, but they don't have an artist mentality. They don't know what works and doesn't, which is fine. This is why I love. Have you been using Hero Forge, like the mini creator online?
I keep getting people sending it me, and I've not gone into it too much. I've kind of dabbled on it for a few minutes, gone, I need to wait before I commit to making this. But it looks really good.
Because it's got really color detailed now, and it's got a huge. It updates every week, a bunch of new stuff, and it's not as expansive as other things that I've used, but it's really, really cool, and I highly recommend it. I will take a sponsorship, just saying. So you get a lot of stuff for your bucks, guys, and I should know because I'm going to donate. I'm going to go on this right now, and I am going to pledge to get the hardcover.
Thank you.
Are you
going to be back at 200? Are you going to take the glory?
There's already 200 backers at time of recording. Damn it! I could have been special.
Could have been there. Thanks, dude. I really appreciate it. I don't just come on these things to try and sympathy get people into the
because this is something that is worth backing. This is something that is worth your time, worth money, and because good stories are priceless, frankly. And if you can support an artist, if you can and this is the thing. As something I've noticed as a writer, the hardest thing to do is to sell yourself. And I've known people who are fantastic writers who can't sell themselves for shit because of just like shyness, awkwardness, anxiety, and just like it takes a lot of guts to be able to be not even brazen, but just brave enough to say, I'm good at what I'm doing. I'm going to give you something good, but you got to meet me halfway and meet me in the middle.
Yeah.
Because that way we all get something out of it, and it's worth it. It really is. I don't do that for every creator that comes on here, because otherwise I would have no money. But when I can do it, I like to do it because it's worth the money. And I'm going to get myself a fucking first edition hardback.
Thank you. You're kind of my demographic with this one. I think I think it's important when whatever project you choose to take on, big or small, that you really believe in it. Don't do something for the sake of it. Like, make sure you love it because you've got to do the work. But I mean, to anyone who's even just getting into like making stuff, the first time I did a Comic-Con, I did it with one of my best mates, Tyler Wilson, and we were nervous wrecks. Like, you could have pulled over the car and we would have thrown up because we were that nervous about, I shouldn't be behind the table. I'm not good enough. You're always going to get better as a creator.
It's that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Because you've gone so long not being a creator, to suddenly put yourself in the world and say, I am a creator, it feels like you're lying, but the truth is you're not.
Yeah, exactly. And every time I do a Kickstarter, the launch day is like a whirlwind of emotions, because no matter how good you think the project is, or if you've had people support you in the past, you don't know if they're going to support you again, or people might not be in the mood for buying books at the moment. There's all kinds of factors. So I think,
but you just got to develop the mentality of
who cares?
Yeah. Just say fuck it, I'll do it. Yeah. And I've got to say, from this one, I think this is the most chilled out I've been about a Kickstarter. I think partly because I've still been I've been finishing the book this past week while the Kickstarter's been running, so I've had something to focus on. But I feel like because I put so much into this one and people know I have, like, it's been a bit easier to like go, it's done, here it is, this is all me. And if it didn't fail and if this failed and it's all me, I can at least say I put everything into it.
Absolutely. And it's worth it. You're getting a good story about, and this is the sort of thing I think, but I put you up in the world like things like Noelle Stevenson with things like Nimona and stuff. It's that kind of mentality. It's that kind of world. And you deserve all the attention in the world. Blare that spotlight upon you, Lyndon. Blare it.
Thank you. Jazz hands, glitter, fireworks. I'm all here, as you can tell.
The power of love is bullshit. Power of swords and violence. That's where the money is.
Absolutely. And on that note, I think we're going to end the show. Links in the show notes to the Kickstarter capers. Back this shit. Lyndon, thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me back. It's been great.
It's been very great to have you. And if you enjoy the show capers, please tell your friends. Shout it from the rooftops. And if you haven't, go back and listen to some other super episodes. Like fucking 3 years ago when we first talked about this shit. Let's see what the differences are. You can listen to the show on iTunes, YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, or at podcapers.com. If you want to get in touch with us, suggest show topics, or maybe come on the show yourself, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at EP2HRC. Thank you very much to Dan Harris for our logo, the lovely microphone, the red and blue 3D glasses. Those are mine. And thank you for listening. This has been Podcapers, the official podcast for a place to hang your cape. Cue the music!